Greetings fellow painters, Strahane here. Today we paint up 35 Trooper miniatures for your Marvel Zombies board game. And yes, this sucks. The first thing that I did when preparing to paint these miniatures is attach all 35 of them to a piece of pallet wood that I ripped down to 1.5 inches. I then attached the miniatures to the piece of pallet wood using hot glue. The miniatures were primed first using a flat black primer sprayed from below, followed by a coat of flat gray primer sprayed at about a 45-degree downward angle on both the front and back side of the miniature. The entire priming process only took about 4 minutes. 1 minute to apply each coat of paint and 2 minutes in between coats to let the model sit. Now we begin highlighting the models by dry brushing some white over the entire model. We will use a cheap titanium white acrylic paint along with a few drops of titanium white ink to increase the opacity of the white paint. The initial prime of black and gray created sort of a zenithal shade on the model. Therefore, the dry brush is going to be focused mostly on the upward facing areas and any parts of the model that stick out a bit. That being said, we are going to attack this with a fairly heavy dry brush. We will now use the exact same white mixture to start painting highlights on the white areas of the model, as well as paint some highlights on the areas that are catching the most light, such as the cheeks, the nose, and the upper chest and shoulder areas. This is probably the most time-consuming part of the process here, hitting all these little white bits, all the straps, the belts, and boots. I'm only showing 1 or 2 of each of the models in this process and trying to show it from start to finish, so you get an idea of how fast this can really go. I want to point out that I recorded the first few models that I painted, and as the process continued, I actually got faster and faster with each model, so this really is a quick process. Also, the total time it took me I think was right around 3 hours and 20 some odd minutes, but I rounded down to 3 hours for the title, you know, because it's my video, I can do that. So why does this suck so much? Painting fast in and of itself I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, but there's just something about batch painting or assembly line painting, as I like to call it, where you're painting the same thing over and over again on a series of models. For example, painting all the white areas on 35 models, then painting all the blue areas on 35 models. It becomes very mindless and tedious, and I feel that it just loses its artistic element, and I really don't enjoy it at all. I do believe that this is a necessary evil when painting board games that contain a large amount of minion characters, such as these troopers from Marvel Zombies, but I would never take this approach when painting up a hero character or a boss character piece. For those type of pieces, I would take the time to paint something that I'm really proud of. Take my time and enjoy the process. Perhaps focusing on improving a particular technique while painting the model, such as layering, glazing, or wet blending. Alright, that is all of the white done on 2 models, so now we move on to the dark blue jumpsuits. For this, I created my own speed paint mixture using glaze medium, muted turquoise ink, muted gray ink, and a little bit of black ink, which are all by Liquitex. I'm very happy with the way this mixture performed as far as its contrast or speed painting qualities, where it allows the white highlights to show through. However, I'm not 100% satisfied with the color of this mix. I feel like it leans a little bit too much to the blue side, and it needs to be closer to black to give that really nice dark blue, nearly black jumpsuit look. I'm going to get this color perfected for when I paint up the specialists, and then I'll share this recipe with you. Some of the basics when creating your own speed paint is to use half as much glaze medium as you use total amount of ink in the mixture. So for example, with this speed paint here that I created, I have 3 drops of muted turquoise, 6 drops of muted gray, and 1 drop of black ink. That's a total of 10 drops of ink, and to that I add 5 drops of glaze medium. But don't check out yet if you're not into creating your own DIY paint. Leviathan Blue Contrast Paint by Citadel is a fine paint for these jumpsuits. In fact, later in the video, you will see one of the models that I applied Leviathan Blue to. Don't end your sentences with a preposition. I feel that a lot of new painters are drawn to this speed painting method because they think that miniature painting is something that they're not good at or that they're not going to enjoy doing, which actually becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Quick note to point out that I'm applying the flesh color to the miniatures with a mix of Fur Brown by Army Painter with half as much glaze medium added to the mix. So for example, 4 drops Fur Brown and 2 drops glaze medium. Now as I approach painting black on the miniatures with a mix of black ink and half as much glaze medium, I want to point out that this is the miniature that I put Leviathan blue on. I really like the hue of this blue. I just feel that the Leviathan blue was a little too opaque and didn't allow the highlights to really show through. So I was on some rant about a self-fulfilling prophecy and the speed painting method. When new painters who fear that they're not going to enjoy the hobby get their start with speed painting, they find that they're right. They don't enjoy the hobby. They don't enjoy the process of painting a miniature. It becomes all about getting to the end result as quickly as possible rather than enjoying the journey. And that's all I have to say about that. Except that when I am talking about speed painting, I am simply talking about the process of painting fast. I am not referring to the Army Painter product or any other products out there. They are fine products and they accomplish exactly what they're intended to do. I know a lot of people who use them and a lot of people who are very happy with them. On the positive side of speed painting, I find that it's a welcome break from always spending hours and hours on each model, and I find that it can reinvigorate me for getting back to more complex painting. Okay, so that is a look at painting the black on 2 complete models, and now we're going to move on to shading the base with some dark tone by Army Painter, and this is going to go by in a flash. And once we have wrapped up shading the bases on all 35 miniatures, we're going to move on to applying some ash gray to the rim of every base. Another positive of the speed painting approach is that if I had taken the time to spend 3 hours on each one of these 35 miniatures, I'd be looking at 105 hours of painting the same model over and over again. And that just does not sound fun to me. And with that, I would like to thank you for watching this video tutorial on speed painting 35 Trooper miniatures in 3 hours for your Marvel Zombies board game.